let's keep rocking. The Missouri Tigers, year one with the Alpha Nerd. A lot of great sound bites for the Missouri football social media team. Shouts to you. We love that you listen, even as we might have picked on Missouri a little bit in our preseason win totals. But 5-5 for year one. And we mentioned Connor Bazelak. I do mean that. Like, if you are Georgia, you have JT Daniels. If you are Georgia defensive coordinator Dan Lanning, the quarterback in your division that probably scares you the most is Connor Bazelak, who had a very, very good 2020. Now things are going to get a little bit more difficult once we start to dig into the nitty gritty. Like Damon Hazelton, the Virginia Tech transfer, did a lot of good work for him, but he's gone. Wide receivers, who's going to be stepping up there? Speaking of players that are gone, how about some just like ninth year Missouri All-Stars, Larry Roundtree the third. He just all through the career record books, a fantastic career with Missouri, but not a ton of production to go around otherwise. Nick Bolton at linebacker, just somebody else who was just around forever. And Tom, you mentioned the SEC East in the returning production rankings and that Missouri was at the front. Missouri not only has some returning production that leads the division, they've also got like a very skewed old team. They have 47 fourth-year players or more. What I mean by that is they've got 19 redshirt juniors, they've got 16 seniors or redshirt seniors, and 12 graduate players. So whether it's a redshirt senior or graduate players, 47 of them have got at least 4 years of lettering in college football. It's a very, very old team. Will that experience end up proving to be an advantage? I imagine if you're Eli Drinkwitz, it cannot hurt. So, Tom, as you're starting to look through Missouri and you're starting to count up either the questions or concerns, what really stands out?
There's two things. I think that if you're handicapping this division, if it's not Florida or Georgia, like both teams are beset by a bunch of injuries and disasters, I think Mizzou is the first team of the rest of the division that you look at as, okay, that's our other potential candidate to maybe be this shocking team and win the division because of what you mentioned. I think that Connor Bazelak, as a freshman, once he took over that job, I mean, he had a good season. He had freshman moments, but there was plenty there to give you optimism about what he's going to be for that team and that offense going forward. So that's a good start. Problem is, on the other side of the ball, that defense wasn't awful. It gave up a lot of points, and I think a lot of that was red zone struggles more than anything. Like they played the umbrella defense, and then when they got to the red zone roulette, they did not have a lot of success there. And I think that if we see just some natural regression and improvement on that, we could see the defense take a step forward. So I think we need to find that balance of if Connor Bazelak takes that step forward as a sophomore and improves, and if that defense gets a little better, at least making teams settle for field goals and maybe, not even letting them get that far, force a few more turnovers, then this is suddenly a team that, hey, maybe this is an 8-win, 9-win kind of team. Because when you look at their schedule, it's not every SEC schedule is difficult, but it's not as big of a bear as it could be. You get Tennessee at home. In Tennessee, we're going to talk about soon. It's kind of coming off, it's going to be a transition year. You get South Carolina at home. That's a winnable game. Florida, that's always going to be a tough game, but you get it at home. Your road games are Kentucky, which is winnable, Vanderbilt, which is winnable, Georgia, which you're probably not winning no matter where it's played at. And then the non-con isn't really a beast either. Like you get Boston College on the road, but you've also got Central Michigan and Southeast Missouri. So I see a path to 8 or 9 wins for the Tigers in 2021 if a couple things happen. And the things that need to happen really aren't all that crazy to see happening.
I actually agree. I think this is pretty clearly the number 3 team in the East. Speaking of which, if you're an SEC West team and you're a coach who's facing a little bit of heat, this is an excellent year to play some SEC East teams in the cross division. Yes. As long as you don't get Florida and Georgia, like this is some wins to get.
We got 3 new first-year coaches, and all of them are inheriting very, very difficult situations.
Exactly. I guess when you talk about a team like Missouri, I have a little bit less confidence that they are, quite as able to replace a guy like a Roundtree or like Nick Bolton, right? Like, Tyler Batty did a good job for them. Can he be an every down back as opposed to just an all-purpose guy? But I think he probably can. I would expect there's some drop off there. I guess that's something that they'll want to learn, this spring. Also, like their distribution at receiver, just looking at this, was kind of all over the place. I mean, they had 4 dudes who caught 30 balls and another who caught 27. So I'm interested to see like who is the guy that's actually going to emerge for them and be like a true number 1 or even like a true number 2. They basically had like 4 number 3s, last year, and their offense, I think, struggled at times, because of that. Although it got better once they figured out, who the right quarterback was for them in Connor. Like defensively, this is interesting. I was talking to somebody over there. They're going to put less responsibility on the corners this year and play a little bit less man coverage. Whereas we just talked about Florida looking to play more man coverage. And maybe that makes sense for both programs, right? Florida has really nice speed in the secondary and athletes, and Missouri doesn't recruit quite that caliber. And so maybe not asking those guys to do quite as much, but I do think they'll have pretty nice safety play. And so maybe putting a little bit less responsibility on the corners makes some sense.
Yeah, and I think too, like if you look at the way their recruiting class went in Drinkwitz's first year, it's a solid recruiting class. They had a lot of success in the St. Louis area with a couple 4 stars and high rated 3 stars. They got a transfer from Ohio State, Mookie Cooper, who was a 4-star coming out of high school in the St. Louis area, went to Ohio State. He's transferred back home to Mizzou. He's kind of like a Tutu Atwell-ish kind of player who I think could be very useful in that Missouri offense. I think that this is, maybe we don't see the 8 or 9 wins right away this year. Although, like I said, I do think we're setting up for some success, but I think that this is a program that at the very least is heading in the right direction. And like you were mentioning, Chip, it's doing so at the right time where there are 3 programs within this division that are pretty much completely starting over.
Yeah, their recruiting in the St. Louis area was the subject of a mailbag question that I cannot find. So